Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Tyler Cower, and I am the Animal Facilities Inspection Program Manager with the Kansas Department of Agriculture. During the presentation portion of the webinar, all participant microphones will be muted. If you have a question during the presentation, please submit your question using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Submitted questions and comments will be monitored by the Kansas Department of Agriculture staff. At any time during the webinar, when asking a question, please include your name, city, and facility, business or nonprofit organization, if applicable, so that way we can easily answer your question. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted online for all participants. As much as possible, the presentations will also be posted online. Many of you are owners or managers of animal facilities, and we all know you face many barriers in your operations, from record keeping to disaster preparedness. Throughout the month of June, we've hosted this webinar series to provide information and resources to help you overcome those barriers. We've had some amazing speakers join us to go over important topics that are beneficial to your business. We kicked off the series with Elizabeth McCormick, who brought real life experience and powerful insight to help inspire each of us to overcome the challenges handed to us in business, family, and life in general. Later that week, we heard from Adrienne Hurd, who focused on administrative functions, sharing her easy to understand basic accounting principles and documentation resources. She provided expert advice about how to prevent problems, and she presented it in plain English so that even the new business entrepreneur will be able to succeed in strategic planning and easy accounting procedures on what you should keep and not keep for your paperwork. The second week of our webinar series started with Dr. Carol Williams, a veterinarian with the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. Dr. Williams went over the importance of paperwork that is required to bring an animal into the United States from a foreign country. Dr. Williams outlined how to tell if a puppy is too young and went over the regulations of age requirements for small animals to enter into the United States. She also discussed what can happen if animals are not properly cared for before entering the United States and the potential disease threats. Dr. Williams was followed by Andrew Campbell, who combined his own life experience and supporting data to correlate how closely interlinked domestic violence and animal cruelty abuse are to each other. He talked about how to spot triggers, challenges that result when emergency shelters do not take pets, and highlighted concerns in the system for both animals and people who are victims of domestic abuse. Week 3 began with Carl York with the Kansas Department of Revenue with some important information for Kansas businesses about taxes, both state taxes and sales tax, and 501c3 organizations. His examples and resources are helpful for those who need additional questions answered that may not be covered by his presentation. One of the most interesting presentations of the month was by Dr. Christiana Bradiotis of the University of British Columbia, who shared her expertise on the difficult subject of animal hoarding. She shared her research and data on the possible thought process and triggers of what a potential hoarder is, how to identify them, and to get them help if they are open to receiving it. She told of her firsthand experiences in homes of hoarders and provided some context of animal hoarding amid the broader hoarding experience in the psychiatric field. And finally, Dr. Warren Hess helped us learn to be prepared in a disaster by providing information on continuity of operations plans, also known as COOP plans. Dr. has brought education and insight to help us be prepared in the event of a national disaster, as well as a local level disaster, working with our own Kansas State Animal Response Team. We hope you've enjoyed this month of webinars. If you missed one or want to revisit any of the topics, remember that most of them are still available on our website. And of course, our efforts to help you do not end with the end of this webinar series. We are here all year long with resources, which we provide through our inspectors and our inspecting processes. On that note, today we have a slew of information to provide you, from program updates, tips to maintain your facility, to also answering your questions. With me today is Mark Olson, the Northwest and North Central Area Inspector, Chris Damel, the Southwest and South Central Area Inspector, and Ben Lancaster, the Eastern Area Inspector. I just introduced myself and our inspectors. We have a staff of 5 with an open AFI investigator position and Michelle Florence as our AFI program specialist. Our 3 inspectors are spread throughout the state. Mark residing in Sheridan County, Chris residing in Barton County, and Ben residing in Douglas County. As you can see, Mark and Chris have a wide variety of area to cover, and Ben has more facilities to offset the amount of travel Mark and Chris have. Our license year runs from October 1st to September 30th each year. Currently, 644 total inspections have been completed since October 1st. You can see the breakdown of those total inspections here. These numbers reflect the impact the program had from the COVID-19 virus during the last license year, as a total of 568 inspections were completed in total, and 69,474 miles were driven due to our inspection halt to ensure the safety of our licensees and our inspectors. This license year, we have 858 total active facilities. We unfortunately did lose some licensees from the COVID crisis. The governor also issued an emergency declaration, which extended our licenses, so there are still a few that are going to be renewing before this next license year begins. We are now going to move over into our maintenance book that we have designed specifically for all of our licensed facilities. This book provides recommendations for maintenance of your facilities, including daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, 6-month, and yearly tasks, so you can maintain those areas of your facility within compliance with the Kansas Pet Animal Act, as well as some extra tips. Some tasks may need to be completed at a different time than what they are suggested in the book. It does not serve as a replacement for the requirements under the Pet Animal Act, but just as a tool to use to provide reminders on some key points. You should use this guide as a starting point, customize it to your facility needs. The maintenance book will be uploaded with this presentation on our website today for your convenience. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Chris to review the daily and weekly tasks.
Thank you, Tyler. Some of the suggestions for the daily and weekly tasks are to make sure trash is gathered and removed at least 20 feet away from animals in the facility. Spot clean kennels, cages, including wiping up any urine puddles, feces, removing and or replacing any soiled bedding and toys. This ensures animals are in a consistently clean environment and avoids potential odors, pests, disease, or bacteria growth. Ensure food storage bins are closed. Examples of approved storage containers are containers that are free of holes, have a lid that properly seals. You should also make sure waste trash containers are closed with a sealed lid to help prevent odor and pest infestation. Clean food and water should be available. Remove any algae, mineral deposits from the water dishes to avoid potential bacteria contaminating animals. Replace or clean the dishes if necessary. Check or replace pest and insect control devices. Check outside kennel areas for any bird or wasp nests. If any are found, they should be removed properly. Grass and leaves should be maintained at least 20 feet surrounding the facility and the animals. And when the weather changes, leaves, snow, and ice should be removed from the pens. Files and records should be updated on a weekly or daily basis as needed. All of these daily and weekly tasks ensure, at minimum, animals in a consistently clean environment avoids potential odors, pests, disease, or bacteria growth. I will now turn it over to Mark, who will go over bi-weekly tasks.
Thank you, Chris. It is recommended that you deep clean and sanitize your animal areas by using a method that is listed in the statute. There are 3 options. First, you could spray all your surfaces with steam under pressure. Second, you could wash all of the surfaces with hot water. That is at least 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and with soap or detergent using mechanical, cage washer, or a similar device. The last option is to wash all soiled surfaces with appropriate detergent solutions, disinfectant, or with a product that is a combination of a detergent and disinfectant that accomplishes the same purpose. You need to thoroughly clean the surfaces to remove all the organic material and mineral buildup over time to provide sanitation and rinse it with clean water. You should mow and weed eat the premises during the growing season. This should be done on an as-needed basis, but at least every other week. You should also take time to update your animals on-hand list with your actual inventory of animals. Ensure that they are properly identified and you have the current paper or computer records to match your actual number of animals on hand. Having up-to-date records ensures that you have knowledge of all animal acquisitions and dispositions. This information is crucial in case of a disease outbreak. Monthly tasks include a deep clean of the facility, which should include the recommended sanitizing methods listed that we just talked about in the bi-weekly items. This deep clean should include removing any cobwebs, dust, trash, or junk that has accumulated around animals in your facility. We suggest picking one day a month, whether it's the first Monday of the month or the last Friday of the month, or any day of the month that you pick to plan to deep clean your facility so it's on your schedule. You should walk through that facility to check for dangerous or unsafe conditions, such as broken fencing, holes in the ground that could be a potential hazard to your animals, sharp, pointed edges, or sharp pointed wires that could injure an animal. Of course, you should be constantly keeping an eye out for these unsafe conditions and repairing them immediately when you find them. This monthly reminder is to make an intentional effort to walk through the entire facility regularly, just like we do when we come to inspect your facility. We want you to inspect your facility every day, but for sure every month. You should restock your supplies and make an inventory of all your cleaning and sanitation products and reorder them as needed, so you have all of your needed supplies when preparing to clean your facility. Again, you should verify your animal's on-hand list and ensure that it is current at the beginning of each month and that all your animal sales records are audited for being fully documented and organized. This should include ensuring you have the location and dates of acquisition and dispositions, as well as any other identifiers of your animals. When walking through your facility, you should write an itemized list of any repairs that are needed in this month and record the date to have this repair accomplished by. Add these recognized repairs to the correlating time in your maintenance book so that these jobs are accomplished. Now I'm going to pass this over to Ben to discuss tasks that should be done every 6 months and on a yearly basis.
Thank you, Mark. Some of the tasks we recommend every 6 months are to sand and paint all surfaces animals have chewed on or where you see paint chipping. These areas should be sealed to ensure that they are impervious to moisture, as this avoids any form of bacteria growing inside material and avoids any lingering odors. You should also replace or fix animal shelters and enclosures. This includes jagged edges that animals often are chewing on, the dog igloos, or chewing on wooden fixtures in an enclosure. You should also replace any contaminated materials, whether it be gravel, sand, or an absorbent bedding. It should be completely removed, cleaned underneath, and then replaced with clean material. You should also be treating for any parasites in your facility to ensure no potential disease and parasitic spread to animals. All wind and rain breaks should be replaced. Ensure these are adequate and are properly placed. You should also restock your personal protective equipment. This past year, those made us certainly more familiar with PPE. So some examples of those are gloves, footwear, and eyewear. This helps support biosecurity and protect yourself, your employees, and also your visitors. On a general basis, you should replace all your batteries and test fire alarms. You should also be checking any expiration dates on your cleaners, medicines, or other items that have expirations. Some of the yearly tasks include fixing or replacing rusted areas. To identify any rusted areas, we suggest using a glove and rubbing the area that appears to be rusted. If it is flaking or creates a residue on the glove, you should sand down the rusted area and reseal it with paint or replace it entirely. You should also work with your veterinarian to review and renew your annual veterinary care form. Your veterinarian should also be making a visit to your facility. You should also review and update your contingency plan. Dr. Warren Hess had just gave us a great presentation on disaster planning this past Tuesday. That would actually be a great reference to help you complete your own contingency plan. You should also review and update your records to ensure all animal movement has been documented. Your heating, air conditioning, and ventilation systems should also be serviced according to their required maintenance schedule. So a good tip would be to update your maintenance book to reflect those dates, so it's a lot easier to keep track of. And you should also service your drain management systems to make sure that there's no clogs or breaks in those as well. Tyler, that's the end of the list of recommendations in the maintenance book.
Thank you, Ben, Chris, and Mark for reviewing all of that great information with us. Again, as a reminder, all these tasks are just recommendations. You may need to adjust them to your facility, might have more that you feel needs to be included, or it doesn't relate to your facility. We recommend that you utilize the maintenance book, but customize it to your individual facility needs. Again, it's not a required document. It doesn't replace the Kansas Pet Animal Act requirements, but simply a tool to provide you the ability to help you maintain your facility. We're happy to provide our licensees to help break down the barriers and share what it takes to have a top-notch facility. At this time, we will turn it over to Dana Ladner from KDA. Dana, have there been any questions submitted from our participants?
There have, Tyler. Thank you very much to you and your entire team for this great month of June webinar series. So while your team takes a quick breath, I want to call on Dr. Justin Smith, who is the State Animal Health Commissioner. Dr. Smith, we had a question come in with respect to program funding and how the Animal Facilities Inspection Program is funded and what percentage is funded by general revenue compared to that by license fees. Dr. Smith?
Sure, thanks, Dana. So the program is actually funded in a couple different ways. One is that you named them both in your questions. We're supported by license fees as well as we're supported by a portion of our state general fund allocation. Presently, averaging over the last 3 to 4 years, our license fees has been somewhere in that $280,000 to $290,000 range. With that being said, the program itself is that obviously can't fund the entire program. So at this point, where we try to hold it is that we try to make our state general funds pick up the extra costs that the license fees can't cover. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to keep that in check as like we wanted to, but at the same time, we do have enough funding there to do that. So our state general funds at this point in time is funding about 30 to 35% of the program, and our license fees are funding the rest of it. So yeah, that's kind of where we get our funding for this program.
Well, great. Thank you very much, Dr. Smith. Appreciate that information. Tyler, I want to throw this question out to you. It comes from Kat, who's with the City of Mission, or is in the City of Mission. She had a question with respect to animal feces and urine. Are animal shelters required to have any type of waste management plan in order to obtain a state license? With respect to animal feces and urine, are animal shelters required to have any type of waste management plan in order to obtain the state license?
Thank you, Dana. That is an excellent question. There's no specific plan that has to be completed in the way of on paper, but you should have prepared a plan internally on how you will maintain all of your waste that is accumulated within your facility. So if you know you are going out to spot clean in the morning, you should definitely make that plan that once you've done spot cleaning, you send it straight to the trash or the correlating area that you have determined. But to say specifically, a plan has to be in place on paper for a license, no, we would just make sure that it is a clean environment and that feces, urine is cleaned up and it is at least 20 feet away from animals.
So what I heard there, Tyler, is that waste management plan should probably be part of a standard operating procedure. So that way a facility, no matter what facility it is, just has that in their daily plan with it. And if it's in that standard operating procedure for a facility, that would really help out to make sure that it's kept at the forefront.
Absolutely. A part of this maintenance book is also incorporating that into your standard operating plans, making sure that your business plan correlates with all the state, local, community, county guidelines and statutes requirements on each level.
Great. There was a follow-up to the question that we just gave you with respect to waste management. Are there resources available to animal shelters to help them comply with municipal and state laws governing water pollution? So again, first part of this I'll throw out at you and then we'll follow up the rest of this question. So are there resources available to animal shelters to help them comply with municipal and state laws regarding water pollution?
So for the state of Kansas, under the Animal Facilities Inspection Program, specifically our laws cover the just removal of waste. When it comes to handling the waste, that comes down to your local laws as well as the Kansas Department of Health and Environment laws. So I would field that question out to the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for their specifics, as well as the county or city requirements based on their ordinances.
All right, it's always great to be part of a team, whether that is at the local level with it or within agencies, so appreciate that. The next part of the question that was submitted follows up. As animal shelters keep their premises clean and free of waste, how can they help avoid violating other codes about contaminating surrounding areas? So as everything's going great, keeping things clean and free of waste, how are our stakeholders, are there some tips to help them avoid violating other codes about contaminating surrounding areas?
Absolutely. So whenever you are handling your waste, again, putting in your standard operating procedures or your business plan, when you're developing and deciding how you're going to operate, you have to make sure not only are you complying with state regulations, you're complying with your local regulations, including city and county. So with that, when you're preparing your standard operating procedures, or you're looking at your maintenance book and maintaining that and customizing it to your specific needs, you want to include those tasks you need to make sure to do to avoid those other potential violations to other codes.
Great, so it sounds like a lot of teamwork within, so appreciate those comments.
Absolutely.
If any of our participants today have questions for Tyler and the team, Dr. Smith and the other assistant animal health commissioners, please feel free to put those in the question and answer portion. With that, I do have some question, Tyler, that has come in. You showcase the maintenance book. It's a new piece. It's going to be up on the website for folks to be able to download and customize for their facility, which is great. So if a facility were to follow the recommendations that you put forth today, will it guarantee a passing inspection?
Dana, that's a great question. No, it does not guarantee a passing inspection. As I said in the presentation, it does not replace our requirements of the Pet Animal Act. It should be used as a supporting tool on how you maintain your facility. It does not cover every single statute regulation that the Kansas Pet Animal Act holds. So as it is a great tool to use to keep your facility maintained and assist with staying in compliance, it will not guarantee a passing inspection.
All right. I want to throw this next one out to you and your inspector team. Was it on how often are inspections performed on a facility? Whether you want to answer that or if you want to throw to one of the team, just go ahead.
I'm happy to answer that.
Okay.
So facilities are based on a inspection performance history. So if you are a new facility, you are going to have more inspections done before your inspections are spaced out. To get a relationship with your inspector, for us to provide you educational tools and provide you guidance while you're developing and continuing your business. Now, as a facility passes inspections, we don't come out as often. The inspection schedules based on if you've had one passing inspection will come out within 6 to 12 months. A consecutive 2 passing inspections is usually between at 1 to 18 month or so mark. And then if you've got 3 consecutive inspections, the max that we go out is going to be 24 months. It's just based on your history. And as long as you continue to pass inspections, whatever consecutive number of inspections you have will relate to how far out you have to expect an inspection. Should you have an unsatisfactory inspection, that drops you back down to gathering your performance history again. So you'd be back to the 6 to 12 months and then building back up again.
Great. The title of the presentation today was about breaking down barriers. And I know that things change all the time, people change all the time with different agencies and programs and those that work at facilities as well with it. And a question came in on that is, are all inspections treated the same by an inspector as far as what they look for to pass or fail? So like I say, there's turnover from a facility's point of view, there's turnover from our perspective as well. So the person that submitted the question is just curious, are all inspections treated the same?
Thank you. Yeah, so whenever an inspector is hired on as on our staff, we have a training program they go through. And that includes training in the office so that they clearly understand the Pet Animal Act, as well as, just their administrative functions they have to do. But they also go out and do at least 4 weeks of training with another inspector that is already on staff. So they have so many inspections they have to complete. Those including a shadow inspection, which means that trainee is completely watching the trained inspector perform an inspection, so they can get a feel of what an inspection entails, what it looks like, how it's handled. We also have a comparison inspection that they have to have completed. There's so many of each of these levels that they have to do before they're released to do any inspections on their own. But those comparison inspections means that both the trainee and the trained inspector are inspecting. And then at the end, they each do their own report. And then they come together to make sure that what the trainees found is what the trained inspector has found, so we can make sure it's consistent. And then they have their own solo inspections that they have to perform, which the trained inspector provides guidance and assistance when needed. But along with those inspections and that training, we also have our inspection line items in our handout, our checklist that we work off of whenever we are doing inspections. We go through each line item to make sure that those items are covered, and each inspector has that checklist in front of them during inspections to ensure that they're covering all the bases that they need to.
Great, I appreciate that explanation, and I'm sure the person that submitted the question as well does too. So another question that came in, they've had time to think about this maintenance book with this question. So one of your license holders is using the maintenance book, and they've written down on maybe something that they've seen with it and have a date that they saw it, et cetera. So they're doing their part with the maintenance book, and the inspector shows up. Can they get dinged for these infractions since they just noticed it maybe the day before or the day of, and they're utilizing that tool, which we know it's only a tool, to make sure that things go better? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so as we've said, it's not a replacement of the Pet Animal Act, but we will recognize that you've noticed and you have documented that repair is needed. What we look at when it comes to violations is how it affects the animals that are in your operation. So should that maintenance or repair be directly affecting an animal, we will have to cite that. We have to cite anything that we see in an inspection on that day. What we will recognize is within that inspection report, we'll recognize that you have noticed it, and we will make that note that you have and when you expected to have it done.
Great. Speaking of that inspection form, we had questions submitted to roll off that. What do the I, S, and O stand for on the inspection form? Again, what do the I, S, and O stand for on that form?
That is a great question. And so that is based on our regulations have specific areas that we have particular requirements for. So the I stands for inside facilities. So an animal is only kept inside. There's no access to outside. They're housed in an inside environment. Sheltered is what S means. That means the animal has access to both an inside climate controlled area as well as an outside area. Outside is, of course, O, and that is where the animal is housed completely outside. That could allow them to still go into a building, but should that building not be heated or cooled, we're still going to consider that area as an outdoor area. So inside, sheltered, and outdoor is what we use for those.
Great. I'm going to kind of go off that one with it. And I know you guys keep metrics of what you do. So the inspector's there, we have the inspection form going through things. What's the average time that an inspector takes to do an inspection? Or how much time should be allowed for that inspection?
Thank you. So we have a range of facility types on in our program. We've got from animal breeders down to rescue networks that are kind of smaller. So it depends mostly on the facility size. So if it's a large facility that there's multiple animals there, it will most likely take longer than a rescue network where most likely there are not animals located there, and we're mostly going as a records inspection. What we do recommend is minimally you give 2 hours time for an inspection to be completed. So that way we can make sure we can get through your inspection, through your facility, your records, answer any questions you may have, and you answer any questions we may have. But 2 hours is generally what we ask for facilities to provide to us when inspecting.
Great. Tyler, I'm going to let you take a breath right now. And I want to bring Dr. Justin Smith back on to answer this next question. So Dr. Smith, a question came in from Mark, and he wanted to know, what's the best way to monitor legislation that may affect animal operations? So like we say, how can our stakeholders, license holders, how can they monitor legislation that may affect animal operations?
Sure. So first of all, I guess, we have a team here at KDA that is involved in the legislative operations. And so they keep us attuned of anything that might be surfacing that affects us or may affect the licensees that we regulate as well. So by all means, if we see something like that that's coming forward that will be impactful, we'll be engaged in that. Like at the same time, we will push that information out to our licensees and to our Animal Health Advisory Board. So we do have an Animal Health Advisory Board that we rely on tremendously. And so we'll push that kind of message out to them and ask them to push it out to their respective constituents that they have. At the same time, there are several organizations across the state, basically stakeholder organizations that I would encourage, you folks to get involved with. And they keep an ear to the legislations that's out there. But I think there's multiple different ways, but by all means, if it's anything that's going to affect the Pet Animal Act, the Department of Division of Animal Health, or many of our stakeholders and licensees, we'll be attuned to that, and we'll push that information out as best we can as we know it as it comes forward.
Great, Dr. Smith, thank you very much. And again, it kind of revolves back to that title of that barriers, keeping everybody informed with it, whether it's at the agency level, the stakeholder license level, the advisory board with it. So lots of great information on that. With that, Tyler, we have not had any additional questions submitted. So I would like to turn this back to you and your team. Thank you very much for hosting all of this the past month. We've had some great speakers. Everything will be on the website for the program, and so we'll get that all updated with everything. So again, Tyler, thank you very much to you and your team, and Michelle for lining everything up. She was great behind the scenes, so really appreciate everything that she's done. Tyler?
Thank you again to our AFI team for presenting for us today, as well as all of our speakers that we've had present for us throughout our webinar series this past month of June. We've had an amazing lineup of speakers that have provided a lot of great information for all of our licensees. We also want to thank all of our participants from today and throughout the series. We will be reaching out with a post-seminar survey, and we'd appreciate it if you took the time to complete the survey. If you've missed any previous webinars, again, you can view all those on the website, on our animal facilities website at agriculture.ks.gov. That all is here listed on the slide you see now. And this concludes our AFI Luncheon webinar series. Thank you again.